All right, good afternoon, everybody. Happy Pesach Sheni. Uh, I wanted to comment a little bit more about this story in Jerusalem. I guess there's more information coming out, and I don't know all the information, but I know a lot of people, excuse me, know more than me. But it brought up a very interesting subject that, with all due respect, I mean, I'm saying this is my channel. I can say my own opinions, and I respect other opinions. I understand, just like I said in the previous video, I respect other religions. So too, I have a lot of respect for religious Zionists, even though I disagree with them. But we share the same religion. We're all Orthodox Jews, but we have a difference of opinion. So if I can respect Christians and Muslims that we have totally different religions, obviously I can respect religious Zionists. But I'm explaining really more from a libertarian point of view more than anything, my views about Israel. And I agree with the commentator who said that she was upset, that the communists are taking over, but a major part of communism is big government. And I am more worried, though, that this story is going to make more problems for sincere Gerim and Balei Tshuva and so forth. And it's really going to, if anything, this story, apparently they didn't really do any actual missionary work. They didn't convert anybody. But the nefarious aspect of their plan to take people away from Judaism would be fulfilled by the Haredi community becoming more insular because of this fear. And the answer to this really is not fear, but rather being strong enough in our own beliefs that we're not threatened in any way by Christian missionaries. And not only that, but by opening up, extending olive branches. Obviously the major issue here is not that this person was a Christian, but that he was a Christian pretending to be a Jew. And I know within Christianity, even in certain translations of the Christian books that they call part of their Bible, they talk about the Judaizers, and certainly that's something. And the fascinating thing is that there's a video of this guy talking to some other Christians, and he's talking about how he felt that Jesus came for the whole world and not just for Israel, not just for the Jews. If that's the case, why is he running after the Jews? Why? I mean, the sentiment that he's echoing is a quite noble and nice one in this video. Obviously, I disagree with it because I don't believe in Christianity. But I strive for universality, at least in the sense of commonality. I was listening, I had mentioned in my video this morning Bishop Fulton Sheen, and today I happened to be, for work, listening to an old lecture from Fulton Sheen from the 40s. And he is talking about the need for unity without, he said, he had a certain message for his fellow Catholics, and then he had a message for Jews and Protestants, and I would assume he would say for Muslims or anybody else. Obviously, in the 40s in America, religious pluralism and diversity was Protestants, Catholics, and Jews. That was already very liberal. And it's a fascinating lecture because he was talking about a lot of the things that we're seeing today now. And this was already in the 40s that he was talking about the problems of liberalism and the threats of communism. He said that the Nazis attacked the Old Testament and the communists attacked the New Testament. But the communists attacked what he would call the Old Testament also. This was post-war, this was, I think, 46 or 47, when they knew what the Nazis had done and so forth, that he recorded this lecture about the Antichrist, which is not a subject that you hear often Catholics talking about. It's usually more of an evangelical subject. And the truth is, In Jewish texts, there is reference to an Antichrist figure, Armalus Harasha. One of the Meforshim, one of the classical texts, say this is Masha Kern Balaz's Antichrist. But actually, we say that this Armalus Harasha, it's a legend. It's not necessarily a true thing, but the legend that we have in our traditions is that he'll come out of Rome and perhaps be some kind of a golem type of a creature actually created by priests in the Vatican or something like that. Really weird stuff that you can find in certain midrashim. I'm not saying I necessarily believe that or anything. It's just there's this weird type of stuff that we find in certain midrashim. But and it goes a little bit more into details, so they're kind of disgusting type of things. But again, the point I'm bringing out is that the idea itself is an idea that appears in certain Jewish texts. Doesn't mean that it's fundamental to Judaism the way that it is to Christianity, but it is a part of certain aspects of Jewish eschatology. But anyway, the point that I'm bringing here is that he was saying, we don't have to give up our different religious views and our particular religious traditions, but we all have to fight the specter of communism in prayer to God. But with this particular, we're not dealing with communists, but there is a major issue of someone being dishonest that I think even an evangelical Christian should see the issue with this, of this rebranding of Christianity as a form of Judaism. It makes as much sense as rebranding Islam as a form of Christianity. I mean, we know Mormons, most Christians would say Mormons are not Christians. But Mormons do claim to be Christians. And that's a similar type of a thing. And with no disrespect to Mormons. We can disagree with the theology of Mormonism and still, be nice neighbors. They're nice people. They're wonderful people. Who doesn't like the Mormons? The only people who don't like Mormons are ex-Mormons. But and even a lot of ex-Mormons respect the Mormons. It just didn't work for them. But and a lot of it's because the theology is so radically different and somewhat pagan. But that appeals to, obviously, there's a great deal of neo-paganism in the world that could appeal to people as well. But their lifestyle is very Christian, ultra-Christian, right? And it's quite a beautiful society that they've created. Obviously, like everywhere else, there is occasional corruption, just as there is even in our own Jewish community. But that doesn't mean that doesn't reflect on the religion as a whole, as some people would say. And again, I'll reflect to a Catholic example of a Catholic radio show I was listening to some years ago, where they were talking about how they don't believe Mormons are Christians in the Catholic Church. They do believe, for example, that most Protestants are Christians. They disagree with them, but they believe that they're Christians. Kind of like I was saying about the religious Zionists. I believe they're Jews. I believe their religion is Judaism. And I would even go so far as say, to a certain extent, the conservative movement of Judaism is in that realm of I disagree with them, but they are still essentially a halachic movement and that type of a thing. But still, we would disagree perhaps about certain aspects, whereas the Reform totally reject halacha as binding. And it should be noted that most people who attend conservative synagogues are not really conservative Jews, right? And conservative still is that middle of the road. It's not like in America we say conservative. Orthodox is like to the right, but I believe to be still more authentic, and there are a lot of issues, and the truth is even a lot of people who are ordained as conservative rabbis, I think, theologically are troubled and in its ideal, it could be okay and it could be kosher, but it practically never is. Um, as opposed to the modern Orthodox and the religious Zionists, which usually overlap, they're totally kosher. Um, so, but the point that I'm bringing here is this type of fear. Oh, how many missionaries are there in our midst? The best way to react to them is to laugh at them, like A.Y. Humor did on his Twitter page. And I mentioned this morning how he said, there's a whole synagogue in Passaic where they're all just missionaries, but they don't know it. you know, and it's a joke, but like there's a certain element in a joke like that you could only say about Passaic. And I love Passaic. It's a beautiful, wonderful frum community, and it's a community that I could see myself somehow living in, but also like I could also see that I even thought of moving into Passaic, but the 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 joke there is there, and there's a certain aptness to that joke that there could be such a synagogue in Passaic where they're all just missionaries, and none of them are actually Jewish. But anyway, and you could say about Tom's River too, maybe, I don't know, but not as much because like you know, in Passaic they're a lot more serious. And this guy obviously like very serious. So anyway, but this is my fear, and one of my rebbeim said something very interesting. He said, when he's dealing with missionaries and these people, or ex-Christians, people, instead of fighting against Christianity, he teaches Torah. You know, he's learned with people who were involved with these missionary groups, and he taught them Rabbi Nachman's Torah, and they were like, "Wow, this guy, he's greater than Jesus. His teachings are deeper than Jesus' teachings, and so forth." And that's if we, instead of complaining about darkness, you add light. And the Christians say that too. Don't curse light a candle instead of cursing the darkness. But the same thing, our tzaddikim said the same thing. You can't push away darkness with brooms, but you turn on the light and it runs away. So, and I'm not saying Christianity in and of itself for Christians is darkness, although it's problematic and we disagree with it strongly. Um, but it's made the world a better place in a certain extent, as we've discussed. But this type of thing, particularly this, when you have a world of the messianic world that is clearly messianic, and you have and that identifies messianic, and they're honest about that. I don't even have as much a problem about them, but someone to be deceitful. It seems this guy was confused though, but he was very smart. He was intelligent, but he seemed to not maybe have street smarts. There was something wrong with him, obviously, but still, he meant well. But it was a big, it was a crazy story, and a lot of people really liked them, and I think they genuinely, the stories I'm reading, generally, accepted them as their friends, and reflecting on that, with honesty and so forth, would be an interesting thing to find out about. You know, why why did they do this? Now that this is out in the open, um, let's dialogue on this. That would be a fascinating thing. It would never happen, except a weirdo like me might do something like that, and I might. If this guy, I think his name Michael or something, if he want, and I know he'd been interviewed in other places. If he wants to be interviewed, if he wants to do some kind of interview, and now that his cards on the table, um, let's dialogue. Let's see where you're not going to convince me, and I'm not going to convince you. But let's discuss. Maybe I will convince him because I still and he probably knows the truth. That he's wrong, right? but and maybe he'll do tshuva. Maybe he will turn things around. Maybe it's a whole confusion. I don't know. Who knows? you know, I'm not I'm not going to throw him in the garbage. If he wound up committing a crime and he was an inmate in my prison, right? If he committed a crime in Pennsylvania, he was an inmate in my prison, I'd sit and learn with him just like I learn with all the other guys who aren't Jewish, or some of them are, and some of them have Christian beliefs, some of them don't. I'm going to treat everybody the same. I remember we had one guy, he's not in the prison anymore, and he was out and out Christian, solid Calvinist, but he claimed his mother was Jewish, and I believed him. And the Lubavitcher rabbi in his previous prison told me, he is of the Jewish faith, meaning because his mother is Jewish. I was like, he might be halachically Jewish, but his faith is Christianity, right? But he wanted to put on tefillin once in a while, whatever it was, and the Lubavitcher rabbi convinced him to put on tefillin. I don't know if that it still could be like a shtickle of avodah zarah that he's putting on tefillin l'shem avodah zarah. It could still be a problem. I don't know. It's not so simple. But if he wants fun tefillin, I'm not going to tell him no. It's there for him to put it on. But l'maisa, it could be a problem, halachically speaking. But it's time to make a little tish. We covered Pesach Sheni, so we'll go inside now, Mirz Hashem, and make a little tish. We might even make it live, and enjoy this holy day that's not really a holy day like we discussed yesterday, but we can make it holy with Torah and Yiras Shamayim, and knowing that there's really only one God, and none of this nonsense about a false Messiah or anything else. There's just one God, and we have to have our devotions to the one God. But we can serve Him on this special day in a special way, if we so choose. Thank you for watching. God bless. Please like, share, and subscribe. Comment. We'll see you later.